Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Today, we are diving into a topic that I think it keeps a lot of leaders up at night, whether they even realize it or not. It's about the fundamental structure of how we build companies, in a world that just refuses to sit still. We're unpacking the on-demand workforce strategy.
It does sound a little bit like corporate buzzword bingo at first, doesn't it?
Hmm.
But when you actually peel back the layers of the source material we've got, specifically this really comprehensive guide by Felix Römer from SmartKeys.org, you realize this isn't just about HR. It's a complete rethink of the organizational chart.
So moving from a static picture to a moving video, basically.
Exactly. The traditional model is, you have a job, you fill a seat, and you stay there. This new model is fluid. It's blended. It's about having your core full-time people working right alongside a highly flexible, on-demand layer of talent. And the argument here is that this isn't just a nice-to-have anymore.
That's the part that really jumped out at me, the urgency. The sources paint a picture of an economic landscape that is, well, frankly, it's hostile to the old way of doing things. Why is this a survival issue right now?
It all comes down to volatility.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing these massive macroeconomic shifts. The text highlights things like tariffs that raise your costs overnight or supply chains being completely realigned.
And we keep hearing about reshoring.
Right, bringing operations back home. Now, just think about the logistics of that. If you suddenly open a new factory because of a policy change, you have this huge localized spike in demand. You need skilled people now, not in 6 months, today.
And once that initial surge is over, you might not need that same level of staffing.
Precisely. And that leads to this concept in the article that I found really compelling, stranded capacity.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does that actually look like for a business?
So imagine you hire, say, 50 full-time engineers for a huge project. You pay for the recruiting, benefits, laptops, the whole 9 yards. Then the project finishes.
Right.
Or worse, the market shifts and it gets canceled. Now you're stuck with 50 expensive salaries on the books with nothing critical for them to do. That's stranded capacity. It just drags you down.
But the flip side is just as dangerous, right? If you don't hire them and demand spikes, you miss the boat entirely.
Exactly. It's the Goldilocks dilemma. Too many people, you're burning cash. Too few, you're burning opportunity. The on-demand model is designed to solve exactly that. It gives you the lungs to breathe, to expand when the work is there and contract when it's not.
It makes perfect sense in theory,
Yeah.
but I want to look at the reality of the talent market because the numbers in our sources are startling. It says over 70% of employers are reporting talent shortages. 70. That's a huge number.
It's a massive disconnect, and you have to ask why. The article points to something it calls the skill half-life.
I've heard this term. It basically means skills expire, right?
Yes, but the key is, the speed at which they expire is accelerating like crazy. This is a crucial point. I mean, think about it. 5 years ago, you hired a marketing manager. Their expertise was probably SEO and email. Today, if they don't understand generative AI, programmatic ads, and data analytics, they're already falling behind.
So the person you hired 2 years ago might have been perfect for the company you were, but not the company you need to become.
That's the harsh reality. And for a company that relies only on full-time staff, that is a huge risk. You can end up with a workforce that's loyal, but technically obsolete. This model lets you inject that cutting-edge expertise exactly when and where you need it.
Speaking of that expertise, let's look at where this talent is coming from. We've got this infographic, the future is freelance, and honestly, the projection here seems aggressive. It says by 2028, freelancers are projected to make up over 50% of the entire U.S. workforce. That's 90 million people.
It sounds aggressive until you look at the generational breakdown. This isn't just about people driving for Uber. This is knowledge workers. The source notes that 47% of millennials and 44% of Gen Z are already freelancing.
Wow. So for nearly half the younger workforce, this isn't some stopgap. This is the career path.
Correct. They want the autonomy.
Yeah.
So if your company's policy is, we only hire full-time, 9 to 5, in the office, you are cutting yourself off from half the talent pool.
That's a really sobering thought. You're fishing in a shrinking pond.
You really are, which is why this is so vital.
So let's get practical. The text talks about this blended model, but I think we need to be clear what we're talking about. When I hear on-demand, I think a lot of people might picture, low-level task-based work, but this article is talking about something else entirely.
Very different. It outlines a whole menu of high-level options. The one that stood out to me was the fractional CXO.
This is fascinating. You're basically renting an executive.
Essentially, let's say you're a mid-sized company. You know you need a digital strategy, but you can't afford a full-time chief technology officer, and you don't need one forever. You need the strategy now.
So you bring in a fractional CTO for what, 6 months?
Exactly. They
Yep.
come in, they build the roadmap, set the architecture, maybe hire the initial team, and then they rotate out. You get all the value without the long-term bloat.
And it goes deeper than that. It also
Yeah.
mentions rapid delivery teams.
Yeah, this is like a SWAT team for product development. Instead of pulling your existing employees off their day jobs, you hire a preformed pod, a product manager, 2 developers, a designer, people who've worked together before. They come in, build the prototype in 6 weeks, and they're gone.
That speed is incredible. Which brings me to the how. I can just hear managers listening to this thinking, okay, great, but this sounds like a logistical nightmare. How do you organize this?
The article suggests starting with what it calls a gap map.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Walk me through it.
It's just an inventory check. On one side, you map your supply. Who do we have, and what are their actual skills right now? On the other side, your demand. What are the business goals for the next year?
And you just look for the difference.
You look for where you're long, too many people, and where you're short. Those short areas are your bottlenecks. Those are the gaps you need to fill, and that's where you point your on-demand strategy first.
Okay, that makes sense. But this is where the friction usually happens. The article talks about top-down meets bottom-up. It feels like the C-suite wants agility, but the middle manager just wants stability.
That is the #1 failure point. The text is very clear on this. The CEO can talk about agility all day, but if the engineering manager sees a contractor as just a nuisance they have to train who's going to leave anyway, it's never going to work.
The perception gap.
Right. Managers often want to build empires. More full-time heads feels like more power. This model requires a cultural shift where managers are rewarded for outcomes, not headcount.
Which brings us to the gig-friendly culture. I'll admit, when I first read that, I kind of rolled my eyes. It sounded soft. But the argument the article makes is actually very pragmatic.
It's purely economic. Think about it. The best freelancers, the top-tiered developers and strategists, they can pick their clients. Why would they choose to work with you?
Money?
Money is just table stakes. If you take 60 days to pay them, if you lock them out of the communication channels, if you treat them like second-class citizens, they just won't come back.
And you lose all that knowledge they built up working with you.
Exactly. The goal is to build a bench. You want this pool of pre-vetted experts who know your systems and can spin up in 24 hours. You only get that if you treat them like partners.
So what does that look like, tactically, being gig-friendly?
It's pretty basic, really. Fast, transparent payment. That's #1. Clear onboarding. Give them the access they need on day 1, not day 5. And just respectful communication. Include them in the wins. Make them feel part of the mission.
It's just relationship management at the end of the day.
It is. You're building a network, not just filling a slot.
Let's talk about the engine that has to power this, because doing this manually sounds impossible.
It is. Traditional hiring takes months. The goal here is speed. We're talking days. You just can't do that with spreadsheets.
And the article leans heavily on technology here, AI-driven platforms.
Right. These new platforms, they aren't just job boards. They use AI to match skills instantly. You say, I need a Python developer with fintech experience in this time zone, and the algorithm ranks candidates who are available right now.
So the human manager can focus on the culture fit, not on reading 500 resumes.
Precisely. And it also talks about digital sourcing. You can't just post a job and wait. You have to go find the talent where they are in their own communities.
Okay, now I have to play the skeptic. This all sounds great, but the adult supervision part of my brain is screaming about risk.
And it should be.
I mean, you have tax laws, labor laws. You can't just hire people and pay them on PayPal without the government knocking on your door.
That's the governance and compliance section. And honestly, it's the most boring part of the article, but also the most critical. The text warns specifically about classification risk.
Employee versus contractor.
It's a legal minefield. If you treat a freelancer like an employee, you control their hours, provide their equipment, but you pay them like a contractor, you are opening yourself up to massive liability.
The government does want its payroll taxes.
They certainly do, and the rules are different everywhere.
So how does a company scale this without an army of lawyers? The article mentions something called an EOR.
An employer of record. It's a brilliant workaround. Say you find the perfect developer, but she lives in Brazil. You don't have a legal entity there. You don't know their labor laws.
Right. I don't want to accidentally break a law in a country I've never even visited.
So you use an EOR. It's a third-party company that legally employs that person in Brazil. They handle all the local taxes, benefits, compliance. Then they lease that person's time back to you.
So it's like a legal firewall. You get the talent. They handle all the bureaucracy.
Exactly. It lets you be global and agile without the administrative nightmare.
Okay, so we've covered the why, the what, and the how, but ultimately, this all comes down to the bottom line. How do we know if it's actually working? The article suggests our old metrics are wrong.
They are. Most HR teams measure time to hire. How long was the job open? In the on-demand world, that's a vanity metric.
So what should we be measuring instead?
Time to productivity.
What's the difference?
Time to hire just means you got a body in a seat. But if that person takes 3 months to get up to speed before they do anything useful, you've lost all that time. A specialized consultant, they might start on a Monday and be shipping code or delivering strategy by Wednesday.
So even if their hourly rate is higher, the value is delivered so much faster.
So much faster. And then you look at outcomes. Did the project launch on time? You measure the output, not the activity.
And when we zoom out, that infographic mentioned freelancers contributing 1.27 trillion to the economy. So that's a number you just can't ignore.
It's a serious engine. This isn't a gig anymore. It's a huge part of the GDP.
I want to circle back to that word you used at the start, agility. It feels like that's the only competitive advantage that really lasts anymore.
It is. The text puts it this way. Can you surge capacity without blowing your cost targets? If a competitor launches something, can you pivot? If you're a heavy, rigid fortress of full-time employees, turning that ship takes forever. If you're a blended network, you can reconfigure in days.
A company that breathes.
That's the vision. A company that expands and contracts with the market.
So for the listener who's sold on this, who realizes that their org chart is too static, where do they start? You can't just fire everyone tomorrow.
No, please don't do that. The advice in the text is really practical. Pilot and measure.
Start small.
Pick one project, a new product launch maybe. Try the blended model there. Hire a fractional leader. Use a rapid delivery team. See how it works. Then, once you have that proof of concept, you can scale it.
Evolution, not revolution.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you about the human side of this again. That skill half-life idea. If I'm a listener, not as a boss, but as an employee, this might feel a little anxious.
It is anxiety-inducing, but I think there's a flip side. A provocative thought to leave you with is this. If skills are expiring faster than ever, maybe the only true security left is adaptability.
Adaptability as the ultimate skill.
Think about it. Maybe the future of a career isn't a 30-year tenure at one company. Maybe it's a series of high-impact projects. You come in, you solve a hard problem with your expertise, and then you move on to the next challenge.
It changes the narrative from I need to hold on to my job to I need to keep sharpening my value.
Exactly. It puts the power back in the hands of the talent, as long as they keep learning. And for companies, it's about building the infrastructure to let those people plug in.
A complete rethink of how we work. It's a lot to digest, but the roadmap Felix Römer lays out is incredibly clear.
It is, and the companies that figure this out first are going to be the ones that win.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for breaking this down with us.
My pleasure.
And to our listener, thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. If you found this deep dive valuable, please make sure to subscribe, and I highly encourage you to check out the show notes. We have linked the full article, On-Demand Workforce Strategy by Felix Römer. It's packed with all the data and the gap map steps we talked about. It is a must-read if you want to implement this.
Definitely worth a read.
Until next time, keep learning and stay agile. Goodbye.